That's okay. That's okay.
No, I have to let them know that they're my karate.
Oh, okay.
No discipline, They don't talk.
They get demerit.
Demerit, yeah. Emotion. This one don't go up and down.
I think it's probably tightened.
Yeah,
to,
it can,
so
but
that
this one right here, it swivels up and down.
Yeah. I think we're okay. I just
Steve, are you sitting there?
the bishop put it that way.
Yeah, I'll be
Is that,
sitting there.
is that okay? Normally it was over here, but the bishop wanted it.
You want it at the center,
I don't know anything.
facing Buddha. Directly.
There you go. That makes sense.
Hello there.
Getting crowded in here.
Crowded? Yeah, we missed them. Kind of few lonely, so one for you and Stan.
Well,
Okay.
like Sensei said though, if there's like a deer and a fox or it doesn't matter. If nobody showed up, but there's a bird, he talked to the bird.
That's
Very Buddhist, isn't it?
yeah.
A good thing. A good
Well,
sign.
I think, like you said, things you're learning how to see life.
I'm learning, Selfishly, it's fine by me as long as I'm here. I could hear something that might be relevant to my life.
Hey, Bill.
Yeah.
This is
How it is.
that mic. I cannot see. It's too dark. You can see if this is the flower. I just the flower. I'll go over there.
Oh,
I'll
because
test it.
Okay.
Sensei, this is my good friend Diane.
Hello there, Diane. Very nice to meet you.
Go.
Hot, huh? Are you so excited?
Both.
Hello.
Are you sure that's the right one?
Well, follow this road again.
He is Gary's resident guy. Oh. I didn't know.
No, it's over here.
Oh,
Well, that one's up though.
this thing.
Better.
Louder. This thing.
You can
That's
start
it.
getting feedback.
That's
Somebody's going
This
to
thing.
be watching the screen. Well, we don't need to watch the screen. This is because they zoom in for people who cannot attend.
What are all these other
This
little?
thing.
Okay.
That's better.
So the
What are these other
program-
blue, yellow, black knobs? The little ones.
Well, those are for adjusting different aspects of the sound.
Hello.
Pitch and gain and stuff like
This
that.
thing.
The one he's on should be this.
It's tradition, I suppose that. My people are all kids.
Hello there. Good morning.
Hi, Carrie.
Hi, Sarah. Sometimes I have a little while.
This thing. This
That's
thing.
one of our board.
This thing. This
Yeah,
thing.
well,
So it's.
This thing.
yeah, I'm probably gonna be here. Yeah, but I keep coming. Huh? But I keep coming. Yeah.
I'm gonna adjust the template.
But I can go right up here. Me and Darren.
Either that, you can
I'm
do
gonna
it.
adjust.
Right.
Testing. Yeah.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, I don't have room to talk and eat the microphone.
Okay,
So they're my neighbors.
So it's gonna be a little
Here,
different.
you
And I'm
know,
gonna
he's here.
clean up
So,
this thing.
you know, the kids will be really well.
So when you do this, you'll have it, it'll be all ready to go for you. He's always saying you gotta put your mouth, but this microphone doesn't pick up if you're too far.
Yeah, you got a cheap mic.
All
I
right,
wanna
so
get lapel mics. It's not rare, and I'm gonna actually.
so you ready for the bill?
Yeah.
There Stan, you wanna ring the bell?
Okay, you ready?
Yes.
Yeah, so John's been there like the 70s, so then my dad died out just now. But yeah, but I haven't done it.
Oh, sorry, that's one good. I used to give. Wow.
But I wasn't. We're like brother sisters, so we dysfunctional, we fight all the time.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Kaneohe Higashi Hongwanji service for today, May 5th. My name is Bill Yamanaka. I'll serve as your MC today for this service. And we have a guest minister today, Reverend C. Toyoshima. Let us start with the chanting led by the Reverend Ambutsuge, which is on page 57 through 61, and then the tune's on page 65 of the red service book. And go ahead and have a seat. Thank you.
오겐기 이집을 거두며 생면의여도사 우지가스만이 즐거했며 가이시스 언배윤여그 주목은여라이여겐 저세물인 저가그다이 언거를 짓고 가이몬 저진 선마의 지혜 이도금을 여시저게 진가의 은낸 자부어가의 그 진진 그거 가이 되느냐 여그느 세선녀는 인나시시 진덕금을 여그근거다이 지혜 진여 도며 이소 心臓大戦南がサブ最小が同生じ未不下座不正上位愛人者人や税三内知恵以上ご世徳部行志願一切具一切大安下死有部約千億万両大小修行語者不要一切死道小部不尿具の現状部逆非尿語者小部世界部部だけ空修制度公明師書天地小国名税精進偉人難領領がサブ国土第一号周期道場上税国領内四に無道祖がと愛美東大祭事法来所新名症状非道が国慶楽安の株神明税が新書おつがんの日力少々欲自公正尊子へ無下上領子孫死が信行下領心死小宮独住画行精進民主系生だぶ願にしぐのぐ平等正祭同法大神北条安楽と
Okay, we'll have Bandana Tisarana and the three treasures on pages 46 and 47.
Yeah, please stand if you're able. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to him, the exalted one, the enlightened one, the supremely awakened one. I go to Buddham Saranam Gacchami, Dhammam Saranam Gacchami, Sangham Saranam Gacchami. I go to the Buddha for guidance. I go to the Dharma for guidance. I go to the Sangha for guidance. Namanavits, Namanavits, Namanavits. Okay, you may be seated. So you can just say, oh, well, we'll have Reverend Steve as
Well, we didn't do the three treasures.
no, that was the three treasures.
Oh, okay. Well, for today, we have a special Dharma talk.
Oh, sorry, we just did it on Mount of Wisdom.
Right, okay. Okay, now we'll do the three treasures.
Sorry about that, folks.
What's that?
Yeah. Difficult is it to receive life in human form? Now we are living it. Difficult is it to hear the Buddha Dharma? Now we hear it. If we do not receive awakening in the present life, then in what life can we hope to receive it? Let us reverently take refuge in the three treasures of the truth. I take refuge in the Buddha. May we, together as one, begin on the great path of enlightenment, holding in our hearts supreme aspiration. I take refuge in the Dharma. May we, together as one, enter the storehouse of the Dharma and attain true wisdom as deep as the ocean. I take refuge in the Sangha. May we, together as one, uniting in harmony, strive to live for the enlightenment of all beings. The incomparable, deep, and profound Dharma is difficult to encounter even through countless ages of kalpas. Now we are privileged to hear and receive it. Let us endeavor to thoroughly understand the true meaning of Buddha Dharma. Namo Myoho Butsu. Namo Myoho Butsu.
Okay, so we're in for a treat today. We've got Reverend Toyoshima is going to give us our Dharma talk. It's going to involve the discussion of the Larger Sutra.
Well, hello there and good morning. Aloha, everybody. I hope you're all having a wonderful day today. I'm going to talk to you guys about a lot of different stuff today, but, we're going to be focusing on the Larger Sutra. So, what is the Larger Sutra anyway? Well, basically the thing is that the historical Buddha Shakyamuni, lived 2,500 years ago, and after becoming enlightened, he gave lots and lots of sermons. So, some people say that he gave over 46,000 teachings. He talked to just anybody that he could find, people who are looking for, they're suffering, they were, full of anxiety and all these different things. And so he would talk to them, he would find the perfect metaphor or the perfect story or legend that would click and that they would be brought to enlightenment. And so, he leaves these like over 40,000 teachings behind, and that, they were passed down in an oral tradition from teacher to teacher to teacher, and so it got passed along. And so for hundreds of years, it was never written down, but, they eventually started to put down, these teachings. And so they would collect them in what would be known as sutras. And so sutras would be these collections of these talks that he would give, mostly focusing on like one Buddha or one teaching. And so, even though we call Shakyamuni the Buddha, we know him as a historical Buddha, one of the things that he talked about in his teachings was that, I'm not the only person who's ever gotten enlightened. I'm not the only person whose, eyes have been opened to the truth of the world. There have been many, many Buddhists throughout history, and he would use them as examples to deliver a certain teaching. And so every Buddhist sect now is based on a handful of these teachings, ones that were kind of talking about the same Buddha or the same subject. And so, they're collected together and made as the main focus of that branch of Buddhism. And so, as Buddhism traveled from India to Central Asia to China and Japan and to the rest of the world, everybody would select the most important parts of the teachings, the ones that resonated the most with them. And so the Hongwanji is built around three teachings, 3 sutras, 3 sermons that were given by the Buddha at different points in his life. And they all focused around the Pure Land, a place where anybody, regardless of your background, your education, your wealth, anything, could become instantly enlightened. And that was a pretty big deal back in the day. And so there are these 3 sermons, the Larger Sutra, the Contemplation Sutra, and the Amida Sutra. And so, we talk about these as part of our study, but basically the Larger Sutra is the most important one because it's sort of like the origin story for Amida Buddha. So in the center of our altar, we don't have a statue of the historic Buddha Shakyamuni. Some temples do, but we have a statue of the Buddha Amida. So this is the Buddha of limitless light and life. And so, this is not a person who actually lived. This is more of like a metaphor for the Buddhist teachings themselves. And so there's a whole sutra that's designed to be kind of like, you see Tony Stark become Iron Man, you see Peter Parker become Spider-Man, you see Bruce Wayne become Batman. This is a story of how a king, someone in this ancient story becomes a Buddha. And so, in the Buddha's time, in Shakyamuni's time, it was a very strict system of castes. So wherever you were born, that's where you stayed. If you're a warrior, you stayed a warrior. If you were a Brahmin, like a high priestly class, you'd stay a Brahmin for your whole life. And so there wasn't a lot of movement between the different castes. You were supposed to stay where you were. So the idea of a king, somebody in the warrior caste, becoming a priest would be kind of unheard of. But that's the story that happens with Shakyamuni. It's, he gives the story of this, symbolic Buddha, Amida. And it's kind of like, when you tell a story that's really about yourself, but you say, oh yeah, so this happened to a friend of mine, like in the TV shows, oh yeah, well, a friend of mine is going through some, problems with his friend or, has some kind of difficulty. You create this other friend as a way of explaining something about yourself. And so this was really Shakyamuni explaining about his own spiritual journey, going from the spoiled prince of a wealthy, palace family to becoming, a homeless monk in the woods. And so, why would you do that? So the Larger Sutra starts by telling the origin story of the Amida Buddha. And so before we have this Amida Buddha, we have Dharmakara. These names are really difficult, so you can just remember him as the former king. So in the Larger Sutra, it starts off with a story of this king who gives up his kingdom, he gives up his crown, his wealth, and all those things to become a seeker, to be somebody who he listens to the words of an even older Buddha, an even more ancient Buddha that, he comes in contact with these teachings, his eyes are open, and he realizes that he wants to become a Buddha just like that. And so he goes up to this Buddha and he says, what can I do to find enlightenment? I desperately want to help all of the living beings that are suffering, because in the Shakyamuni's time, the idea is that all you had to do is really just to listen to Shakyamuni. You listen to the Buddha talk and boom, you're enlightened. He would use one of those 84,000 teachings to find the right words to wake you up, to make you realize that we're living in an impermanent world, that we're all interconnected to one another, and we're always changing. These truths of reality that he was trying to convey to everyone. He realized that it would be very difficult to convey these ideas to people once he was dead. The thing about the historical Buddha is that he was a human being just like us. So, we only have a certain number of years to live. And that he realized that, well, if the only way people could become a Buddha is by listening to me, that's not going to do it. So he left behind many teachings that show us how to find awakening, even without, the one guy who knew what he was talking about. So he has this idea of the Pure Land, that this king who gives up his kingdom to become a seeker, he says, I really, really want to become a Buddha so I can liberate, I can save all sentient beings from the pain and suffering of everyday life. And so, how do I do that? And this ancient Buddha tells him, you need to create these vows, these promises. In order to become a Buddha, you have to have these vows. And so, hello there, good morning. And so he creates 48 of these almost like self-commandments. So basically he's talking about establishing this Buddha world, and that anybody who goes to that world, without having to become perfect people, without having to get rid of their sins and anxieties and imperfections, anybody who goes to this land can become a Buddha, which is very different from the tradition at the time, as you have to work hard and meditate and listen to the teachings, and you have to live a very strict life in order to be on the Buddhist path before. But the idea of the Pure Land is that anybody, all just by taking refuge in this Buddha, by taking refuge in this Pure Land, you'd be able to go and get the same benefits of being liberated from your suffering. And so he creates these 48 vows, things like, in this Buddha land I'm going to create, there's not going to be any hell. There's not going to be any punishment after death. There's not going to be ignorance or anger or hatred, racism, sexism. There'll be perfect equality in this world that I'm creating. No matter who you are, you'll be able to go there, and everybody will be perfect together. And that he creates this world, and these vows, or Hongan, that's what we're called the Higashi Hongwanji, is where the temple of that vow to save living beings. And so, we talk about the Pure Land Buddhism. That is what the Pure Land is. This is what we're talking about, is the Pure Land of this Amida Buddha. And the idea of it is that in everyday life, we're not able to spend 3 hours a day meditating. We're not able to donate our life savings to build a stupa or to build a temple or to build a church or something like that. We're just ordinary people. And that when Shakyamuni was coming up with this sermon, he realizes that people in our time, it's going to be very difficult for them to, we can't go and become monks. We can't leave our lives behind. So what can be done for alleviating the suffering of ordinary people? And so the Amida Buddha is the idea of enlightenment coming to us. The traditional idea of Buddhism is that you have to go to, you have to work hard, you have to climb the ladder to make it up to enlightenment. The idea is I'm going to meditate, I'm going to, not eat meat, I'm going to, follow all these rules, and I'll build up enough, merits. I'm going to build up enough points so that I'll become enlightened. That was a traditional idea of Buddhism, and that was not open to most people. And so it's only when you have this idea of a Pure Land Buddhism where all you need to do is to take refuge. We say we take refuge in the Buddha. We're talking about, when we say Namu Amida Butsu, all that's saying is that, I'm going to the Buddha for guidance. I'm going to take refuge in this, we call it power beyond the self. The idea, instead of us having to cross over to the other shore, us having to climb up the ladder to get to awakening, that it's all coming from the Buddha side of things. It's always coming from the Buddhist teachings. So what does that mean? That's kind of a difficult concept, but it's the idea is that everything in our lives is trying to awaken us. It's not us having to go and sit in meditation. That works for some people, but for most of us who are working, we're trying to live our lives, that's very difficult. But what Buddhism, what Pure Land Buddhism is giving us is a way to look at the world that is totally different. So it's like when we encounter obstacles in our life, what do we think? Ah, shucks, I got to deal with taxes, or I'm stuck in traffic or something like that. We have a certain way of looking at the world in these like pluses and minuses. So like, oh, I got a promotion at work, wonderful, I'm going to get more money, all these different things. Oh, the prices on chili went up, so my chili and weenies and rice, it's going to be more expensive to make. All these things, we try to maximize the positive things in our life, and we try to minimize the negative things. But we don't have any control over those kind of things. It's like Siddhartha, the Prince Buddha. The reason why he came to awakening is because he collided with the wall of reality. His father had tried to keep any sign of sickness, old age, or death away from the young prince when he was growing up. But the moment he came in contact with seeing people who were sick, dying, or people who were old, he had this huge realization that, wait, I can get old, I can get sick, I can die too. And it totally changed the way that the young prince thought. And so he said, well, I need to find a way to find a cure for this suffering. And so that's where all of these different sermons come out, all these different ways of changing the way that we look at the world. So instead of seeing things in terms of positive and negative, seeing the world as just everything is coming as a teaching to us. A lot of people say, oh, well, that was a teachable moment. And the idea is that when we change the way that we think about life to being everything and everyone is trying to teach us something, that is when we are in this beautiful, pure land that the Buddha was talking about. The Pure Land is not a place that you go after you die like a heaven. Like if you're really good, you can go to the Pure Land after you die. The reality is that, this place that the sutras talk about of great beauty and Buddhist teachings are everywhere, and it's easy for anybody to become enlightened wherever they are. That's this world right here. It's that, seeing ourselves get older, having our parents get older, get sick, even passing away. These are precious teachings that we're receiving. We're seeing the world as it really is, seeing that, I'm impermanent too. My friends and family are also impermanent. We can see how the things that the Buddha was teaching are not like some lofty theory, but it's a reality for our lives right now. So when we realize that, life is impermanent, when we realize that we can become sick, we can grow old and die, what is encouraging us to do is to live right now. The Buddha saw that many people were struggling with this anxiety. People were regretting things that had happened in the past. They're full of regret. And he saw that they're full of anxiety about the future. But he gave us a way to live in the present moment, trying to understand everything that happened in the past as being a teaching for us. And something in the future, that's something that hasn't happened yet. So he gives us a way to look positively towards the world, to try not to look back on the things that happen in our lives with regret, but as a teaching that the universe was trying to deliver to us, trying to tell us that, we live in a world that is so ever-changing. We have to seek, this bigger truth that we call the Dharma. And so, that's what is being talked about in the Larger Sutra. It's, what kind of world we can see this world we're living in as. So when it says that the Pure Land is a place without racism, without differences in ethnicity and gender and social status and things like that, it's not saying that after we die, we're going to go to a heaven where everybody is equal. It's saying that there's a way for us to change our thinking so that we can see other people and other things in our lives as equals. And we can see everybody around us as a Buddha. The Larger Sutra talks about all these bodhisattvas, people who come to the brink of enlightenment, but stay in this world to help. It's asking us to see other people in our lives as those bodhisattvas. It says that all these Buddhas and bodhisattvas are praising Amida. And what is that? What that is trying to say is that these teachings are always around us. The coworker that we can't stand, the teacher that helped us so much when we were growing up, all these people were trying to teach us something, even if we didn't realize it at the time. One of the things I've been talking about recently is, younger people probably don't remember this, but film. You take a picture on your camera and you actually have to get it developed. It's a pretty crazy concept where you can take a picture on your phone and it's just right there in front of you. But the idea of a film camera is you have to take every picture and then you can look back, you can get the film developed and see how it comes out. And it's the same thing in our lives. We soak up, we take so many pictures at all these different points in our life, during our childhood, our education, ups and downs. We're always taking these pictures. And Buddhism gives us a way to develop these photos, to reflect back on our lives and to say, oh, that is what that was trying to teach me. That is what that person was trying to teach me, even though I couldn't realize it at the time. This way of totally reorganizing the way that we see our lives and that we see the world. It's pretty difficult to do. When you get cut off by somebody on the freeway, it's hard to say, oh, thank you very much, you're like a Buddha to me. When you see somebody on the TV that you don't like, it's hard to say thank you for being a Buddha. It can be really difficult. But I think it's that when we are able to realize that somebody is trying to teach us, when we realize that this experience was trying to illuminate something about, maybe this thing was not really about the other person, it's about my own ignorance, it's about my own selfishness or my own ego that was really causing the problem. It wasn't really the other person. When we are able to look back on ourselves and realize that the Buddhist teachings are trying to, it's like the grass poking up from the parking lot. There are things that are coming out even with us intending it to. When we realize that this world that we're in right now is actually the Pure Land, it's actually the garden of learning, the place where we can be awakened right here and right now. That's why we say Namu Amida Butsu. In the past they'd say, oh yeah, you say Namu Amida Butsu because it's like you're praying to Amida. You're saying, thank you, Amida, for saving me. But that's not the case. What Namu Amida Butsu is it means thank you. It means sorry and thank you. It's realizing that, as a very imperfect person, like just this morning, I was like, oh, no, Bill, we already did the 3 treasures. We have not done the 3 treasures. We're always thinking of things, we're tripping over our own feet every day. We're struggling with our own ignorance and ego, anger, greed, all these different things. But the Buddha, the idea of not having Buddhism be based just on a historic person, somebody who can die and maybe even be forgotten, but basing the Buddha on the teachings themselves means that it's eternal. We can always go back to the teachings. Like if Shakyamuni never existed, we would still be able to go back to the Buddhist teachings and look at them and say, well, they're just talking about reality. The reality of things, being impermanent, of us living in a constantly changing world, that's not a fantasy, that's not like a theory, that's just the way things are. And us living in a world where everything is interconnected and things are always kind of affecting the things around it, well, that's just reality. And so that is what the statue of Amida represents, is this reality of the teachings that, you know, is always reaching out to us. It's always trying to awaken us wherever we are. And so, you know, Larger Sutra, all these different teachings are just trying to bring us to that realization that we are living in a world where, you know, even though we see it as a pretty dark and chaotic place sometimes, it really is we're always surrounded by Buddhas, we're always surrounded by the light of the teachings. If only we can open our eyes to realize it. And so when, in those times when we have the aha moment, when we have the light bulb come on over our heads, when we realize that we're receiving the benefit of these thousands of years of teachings, when we're able to, you know, maybe make a better decision, or maybe treat the people in our lives a little bit more kindly, or more with more compassion or understanding, we put our hands together to say thank you, you know, to the teachers we have, to the Buddhist Dharma, and to, you know, being able to live in these teachings. That's why we say Namo Amida Butsu as a thank you. So I'd like to say Namo Amida Butsu to all of you for listening to me today, talk a little bit about the Larger Sutra, talk a little bit about all of these teachings, and yeah, thank you very much for listening. And yeah, if you have any questions, please let me know afterwards, and I'll be happy to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sensei. Okay, please rise for the Gatha Ondoku-san, part 2 on page 54.
Embrace, oh, can I speak Japanese or English?
Japanese.
身を粉にしても大ずめし四周知識の音楽もおげよ砕きてもシャスレシ生身がつ生身がつ
Please be seated. Well, I should have you go to page 113 instead. But at any rate, got time for some announcements. Really, the only announcements I have, and anybody else could pipe up, there's more. But next week is Mother's Day. We're not going to have a service here. We had previously thought we were going to have a discussion on a book club item, but we're going to join Betsuin, our parent temple in town, and celebrate with them a Mother's Day service. So if you can and are willing to go to Betsuin and join the service there. Also, the rest of the month, 19th, we hope to join a Zoom discussion with Palolo Hongwanji, led by Reverend Fujimori, and that's a 10 a.m. Zoom discussion. So you could come here and we'll have it on Zoom. And then finally, the 26th, we'll have Reverend Akiko Okada from Betsuin to be our speaker at the 9 a.m. service here. So anybody else have any other announcements they'd care to share?
Yeah. If there are any gentlemen who would like to help us with cooking a wonderful brunch for the ladies, for next week, we're gonna be starting to cook from 9 o'clock and preparing some waffles and, Portuguese sausage and, some nice food for the moms and grandmoms and ladies in the audience.
Thank you, Sensei. Okay, well, that concludes this morning's service. Thank you for joining us both online and here at the temple. And we'll have a brief gathering downstairs for refreshments if you care to join us. Thank you, Majel, for doing the hard work to make sure we have something down there. Sensei, thank you for coming over this morning, and everybody have a great day.